I am so bummed out that the Blue Angels may not fly in October. Put it this way. Today is the start of the Masters. The Masters without Tiger Woods, it's still the Masters.
But not that great.
Right. Not nearly as sexy.
Not only that, but you don't have as many people tuning in.
Right. So the air show is still the air show, but without the Blue Angels, it's not nearly as sexy. So here to discuss this right now is Brian Lawler. You've met Brian before, a longtime friend of the show. He's an F-18 flight instructor at Miramar. He's also an aviation attorney, and he's also a lieutenant colonel in the Marine Corps, where he has taught so many F-18 pilots, including many Blue Angel pilots. And Brian Lawler is with us in studio this morning. What do you say, Brian?
Morning, Cap.
How's it going?
Good morning.
So
thanks for having me.
What's the deal here? I mean, listen, it sounds like an awful lot of money, $15 to $20 million a year to operate the Blue Angels, right?
That is $20 million is what they put out, the Blue Angels budget that they'll save this year, and you have to figure the Thunderbirds, the Air Force demonstration team, is probably about the same.
And what is the main purpose? I mean, are they just a demonstration team to make crowds at air shows go, ooh, ah, wow?
Yes, and then of the crowd that does the oohing and eyeing, you have to think that a number of the younger people who are watching that are now going to be perhaps incentivized to go join the Navy or join the Marine Corps and become one of the team. They are a public relations tool first and foremost, and then as an element of that is their recruiting aspect.
So this whole sequestration thing says the Department of Defense says we can no longer spend $20 million a year using these planes, the fuel, transportation, whatever else the expenses are. We no longer can spend that kind of money with these sorts of performances. You think that's good, bad? What do you think about this?
It's obviously the focus now is funneling money toward the operating forces and those that are still getting ready to deploy and do the active commitments that are still required. It's unfortunate that the air shows are going away. A lot of air shows are still going forward as planned, only without the Blues or without the Thunderbirds or without the Golden Knights. And it's interesting the impact that's expected if an air show goes forward and they don't have one of the demonstration teams, the Blue Angels, for instance.
How is the show going to do?
Well, they anticipated somewhere around 30 to 40% in a reduction in the gate, and all the economic impact would be seriously impacted.
But I thought the air show is free.
The air show itself is free. There are certain VIP seats. Let's talk about Miramar specifically. And Miramar has announced that it is going to go forward without the Blues flying. But the following week is San Francisco's Fleet Week. They're now discussing seriously whether they cancel Fleet Week entirely. And that could have what is being reported as about a $65 million impact on the city of San Francisco.
Yeah, the New York Times did a story in late March. And one of the things they talk about in this article is that the Blue Angels, according to someone quoted here from one of the air shows, adds 25% to your gate. So without that 25%, you're selling less concessions, you're selling less, memorabilia and souvenirs and things like that, which means you need less people, so people aren't employed. There is this whole strange trickle-down effect in the economy based on this sequestration and the Angels not flying.
Yeah, no question about it. For instance, San Francisco, some of the people that were interviewed about Fleet Week potentially being canceled were people like party boat operators who, they fly that show over the water, and so the party boat industry up there, they take dozens of people out into the middle of the bay and let the Blues fly over their heads, and it's a huge cottage industry, and those would potentially be a big loss if the Blues don't, well, the Blues won't fly, but if they cancel Fleet Week entirely.
What happens to all these Blue Angel guys? I mean,
yeah, what do they do?
I mean, first of all, who are guys that become Blue Angel pilots? Who are they?
There are Fleet, Navy, and Marine F-18 pilots who go through an application process based on a certain minimum criteria that they have to meet, and then they simply apply and are at some point selected to become the demonstration team. And the support staff. I mean, the demonstration team is 6 airplanes and 6 pilots. The team in total is about 150, so it's a lot more than that.
What happens to these guys?
They typically fly, the demo team flies about 30 to 40 hours a month during the show season, right, because of all the shows and flying to and from the shows. They are being given about 11 hours a month now to maintain basic proficiency in the aircraft. They're not doing practice shows. They're not flying in tight formation. They're not doing the maneuvers. They are just doing standard training missions that you would see out of Miramar.
But doesn't that make things more dangerous should they get a
Right, if
chance
they're not practicing.
to perform again?
Yeah, my understanding is that they've written off the entire season, so they're not flying 11 hours in the hopes that they'll be able to fly the the homecoming show in Pensacola in November. What I've read is that they're already writing that off, and they're not. The Golden Knights, however, the Army's parachute team, they are training with a similar intensity, so that if the sequestration is lifted, they can go back to doing shows almost instantly. And you can actually watch their practices in Fort Bragg as well.
You know what's amazing is the other day at the Padres home opener, there were 2 San Diego Police Department helicopters that flew overhead at opening day. That was the flyover, and people seemed disappointed. Like, where's the great flyover?
Right.
It's opening day, And I'm like, well, where do you think the flyover is? The sequestration.
Right.
The military's not going to spend
That's when
money
the
flying
economy's
over.
hurting when helicopters barely zoom by.
Right.
Yeah, and they've stopped the other demonstrations too. So the F-22, the Raptor demo's canceled. The F-18 Super Hornet demo's canceled. It's it's unfortunate.
It is unfortunate. As a fan who loves to watch the Blue Angels fly at the Miramar Air Show, it stinks for the fans.
Well, it stinks for the recruitment as well,
And the trickle down in the economy.
Exactly.
I mean, people don't even think about it. They're like, well, of course, what a waste of money. Don't spend $20 million on the Blue Angels. That money has to go towards getting everybody combat ready. Brian, a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Amber. It's so nice to be here.
Lieutenant Colonel.
That's me.
Good to see you, man. Thank you so much for being with us.